First of all, I'm not center frame because I just really want you to see the most minimal effort that I put into decorating for this video. I know. Please give me a round of applause. Okay, so this video comes as a little bit of a surprise. We are going to be talking about all of the fun, autumnal and spooky and cozy and just generally peak autumn and Halloween vibe activities that you can do. I'm super excited to do this video. I can't believe I haven't done this before. This is just so up my alley. I have tons and tons of recommendations to give you. We're really just gonna get right into it because I have a lot to get to. The categories that I'm going to be recommending are things that you can do, things that you can watch, things that you can play, things that you can listen to, and then a little bit of a bonus at the end. We're gonna start with things that you can do because that's the longest list. And before we get right into that, I just want to let you know that I have a cute, quirky, it's very Pinteresty kind of bucket list for autumn. It's really cute. I'll post a little thing here, but it's basically everything that I'm going to be talking about in this list. You can download it, you can print it, you can check it off as you go, and it'll be a fun little activity. I actually do this every autumn season, so this is something that's very personal to me. So if you want to check that out, it's going to be on my Patreon. I will link it in the description. Okay, so the first thing is to decorate. So you're going to want to decorate your space if you want to feel that vibe all the time, like especially if you're working from home. And if you can, I think all of my decorations are from Target and Michael's or Joann's, if that's what they call Michael's in your area. And yeah, they have a lot of discounted seasonal decorations right now. If you check my Instagram often, you'll see that I have a lot of mugs. I have a lot of pumpkin. Just having my coffee in this every day makes a difference. If you don't have access or if you can't afford decorations at this time, or you just don't want to do that, you can definitely go visit some places that specialize in decorating. I know in my area there are certain houses that are, not gonna lie, in the rich neighborhoods where they really put in the extra effort to decorate every season, and so they do not skimp out on Halloween. And this is the time where you want to go to those houses, those huge houses in that particular neighborhood. You can find some houses decked out like super haunted house. They have decorations out on the lawn. Sometimes they have themes. They have music playing. The 12-footer from Home Depot where they've got that massive skeleton. If you go into these neighborhoods, you might find some sort of decorations like that. They go all out, and it's a lot of fun just to see how people decorate. There's also even some neighborhoods, closed off or gated communities, that will open up their doors during the Halloween season. It's sort of like a spooky town, a Halloween town, and you can walk around and you can see their decorations. You can hang out. Sometimes they have little candies and treats. You can definitely find some really fun and free things to do in terms of decorations. Next is Inktober. So if you don't know what Inktober is, it's sort of like an art challenge that people participate in every October. Inktober, October, if you've got it. Yes, you understand. It's basically an art challenge, and every year there's I forgot the name of the handle, but he claims that he's created Inktober, which there has been some speculation and controversy this year about that. So I'm calling it Inktober, but you don't have to participate in Inktober if you do not want to support the person that is supposedly the creator of it. But people have branched out and they've made their own challenges. There's DRALLOWEEN, there's Witchtober. So you can definitely go browsing on Instagram and you can find prompts where every single day or every other day of October you draw something or you doodle something based on that prompt. Now, you don't need to be an artist to do this. I know a lot of people are afraid to participate in Inktober or DRALLOWEEN, whatever, because they aren't artists, but it can be something as simple as a doodle. You can take this prompt to another level and take photos based on the prompts. You can literally do whatever you want. It's a creative challenge, and it's just a challenge for you to, branch out, and it's fun because it's seasonal, so you can definitely check that out. I'm participating in DRALLOWEEN. The one that I'm following is from Little Spooky Studio. I will link that prompt list in the description. Another fun activity that you can do that is for free. Baking seasonal treats. When it hits a certain temperature and it gets cold, you just want something warm and cozy at all times. A lot of the times people like to bake, and I'm one of those people. And it's just a lot of fun to get into the kitchen and experiment with seasonal ingredients as opposed to just basic ingredients. Why not use the time to try something seasonal and delicious? And if you're not a fan of pumpkin spice and you're sick and tired of getting pumpkin spice products when you go shopping, you can make something yourself in a flavor that you enjoy more than pumpkin spice during this time of year. And you got yourself a favorite. Apple cider donuts, those are so delicious. I absolutely recommend. And I like maple, so maybe a maple cookie. I would suggest going to the grocery store and picking one seasonal ingredient and incorporating it into a dessert that you like. Okay, moving on. Taking a road trip. So road trips are so much fun in my opinion. I love doing them. In my opinion, now is the best time to take a road trip, especially if you live on the East Coast or if you are visiting the East Coast. Because the East Coast, during this season, the leaves just change color. They turn orange and yellow and red. It's absolutely beautiful, especially depending on where you're driving. If you're going to a scenic area, it looks like the stuff that you see in movies, and it's so beautiful. Highly recommend. Personally, we take drives upstate New York, and there's a nice breeze, a nice chill in the air where you can sort of like open the windows, enjoy the fresh air, and enjoy the scenery. And if you do have an opportunity to take a road trip or take a drive, or you can even use mass transportation depending on where you are on the East Coast, but I also suggest doing camping. Now, a lot of people do camping and they also do hiking during the summer because it's generally seen as a summer activity. But in my life, or in my personal life, I go camping and hiking when it's cold outside because I can't deal with that heat. I can't deal with the humidity. So when it's cool, but it's not cold, and it's got a nice chill in the air, but you can still kind of walk around without wearing a jacket, is the perfect time to go camping and hiking, in my opinion. We like to go to the Catskills, so if you've seen on my Instagram, I ritually go to getaway houses in the Catskill area. 2-hour drive from New York City, and it's a very smooth drive. You just drive straight on up there, and it's just so much fun. Basically what getaway house are these small little tiny houses. They're tiny cabins in an outpost that's sort of secluded off like a main road. And it's like glamping almost. You don't have to go to this place in particular if you don't want to. There are a lot of places. There are a lot of different outdoor parks and outdoor hiking spots along the East Coast. If you do want to check out Getaway House, I do have a code. I'm pretty sure I have a code. If I do, it is for some money off, so I will link that in the description. There's no affiliation or sponsorship. It's just if you want a discount, you can get a discount. And I think if you use that discount, I get a discount. Something like that. You know how it works. I'll put it in the description if you're interested. But I highly recommend. I go at least 2 times a year. Another thing you can do is host a bonfire. Or if you're social distancing, you can have a bonfire on your own. Maybe people that you live with. Bonfires are a lot of fun. It's warm enough where you can sit outside and not need a jacket, but cool enough where you don't mind the warmth coming from the bonfire. When we go upstate to the Catskill area, we do a fire in the pit at the Getaway House. They have that provided for you. But if you aren't going to take that trip, or if you're not taking any trip anywhere outside of where you live, you can actually do this at home. I used to live in an apartment where the people who lived downstairs from us purchased a pit. It was like a portable pit. It was sort of structured where you just add the coals or whatever it is at the bottom of the store-bought pit, and you can have a fire without needing to do anything with the ground. Now, I don't know how much that costed because it wasn't ours, but it was super cool and convenient. And say you wanted to do it with roommates or friends or family, maybe everybody can pitch in, collectively buy the setup or the kit, and then you all collectively enjoy it and host a little thing. Socially distance, be safe, and don't forget the s'mores. Another option that you can do that is completely free is to volunteer. Volunteering during this time of year is fantastic because there are people that are cold and don't have access to warm sweaters and warm soup. So if you have time and an opportunity to volunteer at a local homeless shelter, or maybe at a soup kitchen. And if you don't have time, but possibly a little bit of change to spare, definitely donate to these local places as well. All right, another thing that you can do is visit an orchard or a farmer's market. You can go apple picking on the East Coast. I think it's very easily accessible, especially during this time of year. I've personally never done it before, but I've always wanted to, and I've had friends do it, and they really enjoy the experience. You can take great photos from that as well. I'm a huge fan of taking photos during these experiences and use the produce that you got. Now, if you don't have access to an orchard or access to go apple picking, you can definitely head to a local farmer's market. It's fresh, it's in season, it's delicious, and you can make something with that. Another thing that you can do with the fresh produce that you just got is have a picnic. Having a picnic using fresh produce from the farmer's market or the orchard and enjoying outside and eating good food. Like, what else could you like? It's perfect. You can do it socially distanced. It's also free to do. Okay, another thing that you can do is read some thrillers, read some spooky stuff. I actually posted a couple of reels on my Instagram with some recommendations, so if you want to check that out, it's over on my Instagram. But you can also check out like short stories. So if you don't want to commit to a large novel, you can check out some ghost stories. One I can recommend is Roald Dahl's. Yeah, that Roald Dahl. He has a book of ghost stories, so that's a collection of short stories that you can check out. I would also suggest, and I know this is gonna sound so cheesy of me or corny, whatever, I don't care. Check out Creepypasta. They have some really good stories on Creepypasta. If you don't know what Creepypasta is, it's basically an online database where people can submit short stories that are in the horror genre. You can search for stories based on the kind of horror that you're into. For example, psychological or paranormal. And yeah, there are a lot of stories submitted by a community, and you can read, you can upvote and downvote based on what you like. And there are some in there that are 100% solid. And if you want some more personal recommendations from me, reach out, comment down below. I have so much to share. Visit a corn maze. So corn mazes are highly popular during this time of year. There's a place called Queens County Farm. It's technically called a museum. It's a historical landmark in my area. They host a ton of seasonal activities during this time, and I love going there and supporting them. They also have fresh produce there, so if you're in this area, highly recommend going and giving them a visit and supporting them. Definitely check out the corn mazes if possible. They have daytime one, they have nighttime ones. I personally go to the nighttime one because I'm all for the spooks. I know at the Queens County Farm this year, they're being strict with social distancing. Definitely check the websites before you head out so that you know what you're getting yourself into. And while we're on the topic of that, I would also suggest visiting a pumpkin patch and getting yourself a pumpkin. So you can definitely get a pumpkin at Trader Joe's or at your generic or your local grocery store, and that's absolutely fine. It's a lot more fun to visit a pumpkin patch if you are able to, because it's just a lot more of an experience. You get to pick out of this huge lot of pumpkins, and they're varied, they're beautiful, they're local, so you know, there's just a little bit of charm to it. And you also get opportunities to take photos, and it's fantastic because you get really great photos there. And it's a lot more fun than feeling like you're going to the grocery, running an errand, and just picking up a pumpkin on the way out. Like, it's a lot more of an experience, so I definitely recommend that. And the last thing that I'm going to mention in this section is to take that pumpkin that you just got from your pumpkin patch, take it home and carve it. Make a jack-o'-lantern. Make a movie night out of it. That's exactly what I do, and it's so much fun. Carving a pumpkin is part of my rituals that I do every single autumn season. I've been doing that since I was a teenager, and you can watch something spooky in the background. You can even play some music in the background if you want. It's also a really ritualistic thing that I do every single October, and I've been doing it for, I would say, maybe 10 years. I detailed all of this week. Yeah, if you want to know more about that, it's on my Patreon. I'll link that below as well. Okay, we are moving on to our next section. If you've been watching still, I'm so glad that you're interested in all these things because it's so much fun to me. We're gonna get right into things to watch. Now, I'm gonna preface here. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this section because I have seen hundreds of movies and TV shows that are perfect to watch during this time of year. And it would be hours and hours of me going through each title if I do that, so I'm not going to. But luckily, what I've done last year is compile a gigantic list on my blog of all the horror movies that you can watch that I recommend. Some of them are bolded, so those are the ones that I especially love, but I also categorize them just like creepypasta based on the kind of horror they are. So there's supernatural, there's paranormal, there's cult, there's zombie, there's even a comedy horror section and a TV show section. So if you want to check that out, I'll link it in the description, but it's just way too much for me to get into. If there is one thing that you watch, just one, if there's just one horror movie that you will watch, for me, please watch Scream. You don't have to watch the entire series, but I highly suggest that you do. The Scream movie series is near and dear to my heart. It is the best horror movie ever. I will watch it maybe 50 plus times a year. If it's one thing that you will watch this month, it should be Scream. Give me a holler. Just leave a comment below. Where can I see Scream? I will find that for you. I'm sure those who have seen that movie can attest to the brilliance of what Scream is. That's all I gotta say for this section. I'm serious, that's all I'm gonna say for this section. Okay, the next section is a little bit interesting. Things that you can play during this time of year. So I'm talking about games in particular, and just as a note, I've played majority of these games on the PlayStation console, so I don't know 100% if they are available on all major consoles. I know some of them are, and I know some of them are available on the computer. There's one game that I'm going to mention that's on the Nintendo Switch, but these are generally video games that are available to play on the PlayStation. I'm going to list them off really quickly. These are some of my personal favorites that I play all year round, but are especially fun to play during this time of year. Not just because it's spot on to the season and spookiness and whatever, but a lot of times these games have downloadable content and updates during the spooky season. They want you to play during this time. We've got Dead by Daylight. This one is a multiplayer game where you either play as the villain or you play as a survivor, and you're trying to escape a certain area that you're in, a spooky area, of course, and you go through a number of tasks in order to escape. Or if you're the villain, you're basically trying to kill all of the survivors. So that one's a lot of fun. It's multiplayer and you play online, which is like so much fun. I enjoy that one a lot, and we play it almost every weekend. The Last of Us has to be mentioned because it's The Last of Us. It's the best game I have ever played in my life. It's also zombies. It's apocalyptic and it has to do with zombies. It's spooky. It's certainly in the horror genre, and it's absolutely incredible. That is a story-driven game, so if you're into games like that, yeah. Resident Evil, it's a classic in the horror genre, and it's gone through so many different renditions, so I'm sure you've heard of it, and it's a fantastic one to try out. Silent Hill, another one that you've probably heard of, another classic. That one is also a lot of fun, especially during this time of year. Until Dawn, this is a fun one where if you've ever heard of games or stories where like you choose how the storyline goes, it's sort of that kind of game. So not only is it like a survival game, you get to make choices along the way that changes the way that the game is being played. So that one is really cool. And I think there are a lot of notable actors and actresses that are part of the cast of that one. The Evil Within is extremely scary, very Halloween-esque. It is super scary. It's a survival game. It's story-driven, but also it has a huge focus on getting you scared. So there are a lot of different missions and different sections that you'll go into when you're playing that game that can be very distinct from one another. In one section, you could be chased by some guy with a saw, and in another section, you could be in a room full of ghosts. That one, you might get real scared. Another one that is extremely scary is PT. So this isn't a full-sized game. I believe it's a demo, and it was supposed to be a teaser for a game that never released. You're basically going through the same scene over and over and trying to figure out puzzle pieces within that scene. I remember playing this with a lot of my friends over at the time, and they left the room. I guess they went for like a break or something, and they went to another room, and I was playing the game still because I was still in the middle of playing it, and I like screamed. I screamed so loud that they all came running back to see what was wrong while I was playing this game. Very scary. Absolutely worth it if you're into those kinds of games where it's like you're in an endless loop and you're trying to get out of that loop. If you're into that, you must play this one. This one's really, really good. And it's short, so if you can stomach the scaredness for a short period of time, I think you'll be okay. And with a contrast, we're going to end this section with a game that's not scary. I'm sure you all know about now at this point, and that is Animal Crossing. So this one is on the Nintendo Switch, and the reason why I mentioned this one is because they do updates, like I said before, and so the fall update has a lot of seasonal stuff. So there's pumpkins, I think you can collect candy. I actually haven't played it yet, but these are the things that I've heard, and it's very seasonal-esque. And if you've been playing Animal Crossing New Horizons this year, you'll know that every season they do something very special in the game. So right now, if you're into that autumn cozy vibe, more on the cutesy side, like sweaters and candy and playing with your friends and planting pumpkins sort of thing, this is the game for you. And I really need to pick that game up again because it's been a long time and I need to see these cute pumpkins. Okay, on to the next section. This section is pretty small, so things that you can listen to during this time of year. Now, the reason why this section is really small is because I don't listen to seasonal music that much, but I do have some recommendations here to give. Halloween playlists on Spotify. So whenever we have a Halloween party, which we've been doing for the past couple of years, we typically like to have background music. We don't like it to be the forefront because we're busy playing games and chatting and, you know, all the fun Halloween party stuff. So if you click on Spotify and you look up like Halloween playlists, they'll play Halloween party songs, which are perfect for the background. You can have something play in the background that can get you into that seasonal spirit. Soundtracks for movies that you really enjoy that are in that genre. So thriller movies or horror movies, they have a really nice soundtrack. They have music that has been created specifically for that movie, and it's actually a really huge thing in the horror genre. If you've noticed, when you watch a horror movie, there is music playing to create tension when you're watching it, and yeah, that all goes into the creation of that movie. So there is a soundtrack for a lot of major horror movies. We listen to the Scream soundtrack, we listen to Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice has some great tracks. The Shining. We actually have horror movie soundtrack albums on record, so we put that into our record player and we play that during our Halloween parties as well. We also pull those out and we listen to them when we're decorating the apartment, so that can really get you into the spirit and it's a lot of fun. And if you do have a record player or if you have access to something like that, it makes it even more spooky. It makes it sort of vintage, old vibey and creepy. So if you have access to that, I will also recommend getting some Halloween soundtrack or horror movie soundtrack records to play. Another thing that you can listen to is Fleetwood Mac. That is going to be the one band that I mention and one artist that I mention. I don't think I need to explain them. They're amazing. Witchy vibes, all the cool aesthetic witchy vibes. If you haven't been introduced to them in the past, you might have heard of them from American Horror Story or TikTok, but peak witch vibes. I just love jamming to Fleetwood Mac at any point and any time of the year, any time of the day, but especially during now. Pull out your broomstick and your witch's hat and listen to some Fleetwood Mac. The last two things I'm going to mention in this section are podcasts. So the first one is the NoSleep Podcast, and this one is a personal favorite of mine. If you've never heard of the NoSleep Podcast, this podcast is basically a curation of seasons. So each season has a theme. I remember when I first started listening to it, I think the theme was like 90s VHS. They are very in character, which is fun. It's almost theatrical. They curate stories that they like to read based on the theme, and they will perform those stories. So I don't know where they get the stories from. I think they find them online through submissions, something like that. But they basically perform those stories, I think about 2 or 3 per episode. And it's highly theatrical. It's very fun. There's sound effects. So if you're not into that kind of podcast, if you're more into the podcast that sounds like a radio talk show, this one is not for you. But if you are into that spooky vibe and you want to feel like you're transported into like when you were a child and somebody told you a story and you can like visualize it, this is the kind of podcast that you'll be interested in. If you're not interested in that kind of podcast, there is a podcast called Lore, which talks about different topics of horror genre. I don't personally like it that much because it's a little dull. To me, it feels like a lecture. I feel like I'm sitting in a lecture room, which I don't typically mind, but this one is a little bit more on the dull side. It's a little less TED Talky, if that makes sense. Some of the episodes I like, majority of the time I do not like, but if you're into that, you might like it. So that's why I'm recommending it. Whew, we made it to the last section of this video. If this video ends up being extremely long, I am so sorry. I just have a lot to share about this season and I have absorbed so much in my lifetime. I'm very sorry, but I hope you're enjoying it so far. And the last section is the absolute quickest section. It's basically gonna be a flash round of Instagram accounts that I really love. Yeah, it's just Instagram accounts that have a seasonal vibe, autumnal, cozy aesthetic, and some of them are very, very niche, spooky, gothic, horror, very, very tuned into this time of year, but they post about it year round, which is why I love them so much. We've got Alyssa at Forest Noir. I love her so much. I've been following her for years. Fantastic, gothic, very dark, professional photography. She also sells product. Christina at AX Ghost Story. She's someone that I followed very recently, but love her content. Very spooky. It feels like Halloween every day on her account. Ash from Notebook of Ghosts. She is very informative. She has a large amount of knowledge when it comes to spooky things, and I just appreciate that so much. I'm actually a patron of hers. Regina at Little Spooky Studio. I mentioned her earlier when I was talking about DRALLOWEEN. She has a prompt, so I will link her below as well, but she has really adorable illustrations that are all like Halloween-esque. It's more of the cutesy Halloween drawings as opposed to something more on the scary side. And she also has an Etsy shop that is highly successful. I have art prints from her. Lauren over at Low Reads. She's a patron of mine, so shout out to you, but also she posts cozy comfort, but also dark and slightly gothic. I would call it like dark academia kind of style, and I really love it. She also makes these beautiful candles. I have a candle of hers. It's amazing. I love her candles. They're very unique because the labels are beautiful, and again, dark academia, not gothic, but just enough dark where you're just like, yes, thank you so much. I also have to mention Adrienne at Good Woman of the Woods. She has also really dark academia, so she's very in tune with nature, as you can tell from her handle, and I just love her love for nature, and the way that she captures it is a little bit more on the dark side as opposed to the more mainstream view of what we see nature as. She just gives me all the good vibes with her woodsy type photos. So this, I guess it's on brand for the creepy church bells to start ringing. I hope you enjoy that. Let's just call it background music, but we have to mention Little Book Witch, which is Ari. She's one of my most favorite people over on Instagram, and she's got the witchy vibes, she's got the green witch vibes, and I absolutely love that, especially because she posts really cozy photos. So it's not on the dark or the gothic side or the Halloween side, but more of an autumn aesthetic. A lot of browns and neutral tones, boho style as well. So it definitely gives you a nice cozy vibe when you check her account out, and she's super sweet. The last person that I will mention is Morgan from Witchy Reads. She has some bomb content. She posts a lot of horror-esque stuff. It reminds me of slasher. Like she takes a lot of photos that remind me of slasher movies. Oh goodness, that was a doozy. So we made it to the end of the list. I am actually going to admit that this is not an exhaustive list. I actually have a lot more, but again, I have different resources for this. So the blog post for the horror movies will be in the description, as well as all the Instagram handles that I just mentioned, as well as the autumn bucket list, as well as my spooky traditions. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to this channel when you do that. And subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Lifestyle, books, food. I've just started a social media tips workshop, so if you want to see more of that, that's also coming soon. I'm also going on a getaway trip soon. I will be going, by the time this video posts, I will be getting ready to go to that trip. So there will be a lot of videos from that getaway house experience that you should be looking forward to. Definitely subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to make sure that you see those videos when they get out. And thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much for sitting through this. If you did, yeah, I'll see you in the next one.